Okay, so what if one of the most ancient epics on Earth wasn't just myth, but a technical manual? We're about to declassify a document thousands of years old, and believe me, it reveals a level of warfare so advanced, we are only just starting to rediscover it today.
Right, so forget everything you know about swords and shields. The warriors in these texts, they didn't just fight. They invoked weapons that could manipulate the very fabric of the environment. I'm talking about summoning fire from a totally clear sky and commanding these massive torrential floods. It sounds like pure fantasy, right? But the descriptions are, well, they're disturbingly specific.
And that's the big question here. For centuries, we've all just read these stories as poetry, as, epic metaphors for good and evil. But what if we've been getting it wrong this whole time? What if these aren't just allegories for power, but literal blueprints for a science we've totally forgotten?
So let's start with Exhibit A. We're opening the file on a weapon called the Agneyastra, which literally translates to the firestorm.
The operational parameters are spelled out pretty clearly, a torrential storm of fire that comes from the sky. But here's the scientific anomaly, the one detail that changes everything. The texts insist it burned with this incredible intensity, but left behind zero radioactive fallout. Now that one little detail? It immediately rules out any kind of nuclear device as we know it. So what in the world was it?
Well, take a look at this. On the left, you have the ancient Agneyastra. On the right, a declassified Cold War concept called Project Thor, an orbital kinetic bombardment system. The effects they describe aren't just kinda similar, they're nearly identical.
You see, this isn't magic, it's just physics. And to understand how the Agneyastra could actually work, we need to get our heads around the principles of kinetic bombardment, a concept that often gets this really imposing nickname, rods from God.
The idea is, it's deceptively simple, and it's absolutely terrifying. You don't need any explosives, not a single one. All of the destructive power comes from the sheer kinetic energy of a super-dense projectile, one of these rods from God, hitting the Earth at an unimaginable speed. It all boils down to this simple little equation. But don't let that fool you. The absolute key here is the V for velocity, which is squared. That means the power isn't really in what you're dropping, it's all about how fast you're dropping it. Just a tiny increase in speed creates this massive, exponential leap in destructive energy when it hits.
And the speeds we're talking about here are just staggering. By the time this thing hits the lower atmosphere, it's traveling at Mach 10. That's 10 times the speed of sound. The energy transfer at that velocity it's just colossal.
And the payload itself? It's brilliantly simple. It's not some complex bomb. It's just a big, solid cylinder of tungsten, one of the densest materials we know of, dropped from orbit. It's basically a man-made meteor, and you can guide it to a specific target.
And this is where the modern science perfectly lines up with the ancient description. The impact converts all that speed into a massive thermal flash, a shockwave of pure fire with the force of a tactical nuke, and most importantly, zero radiation. It is a perfect match for the Agneyastra.
So an orbital firestorm sounds pretty much unbeatable, right? But for every weapon, there's a counter. And wouldn't you know it, the Mahabharata describes a direct countermeasure, the Varunastra, an engineered flood designed specifically to fight fire with water.
The Varunastra had one single job, to counter the Agneyastra. Its effect was to bring down a targeted massive deluge of water with enough force and enough volume to completely extinguish the firestorm raging below. This wasn't just some rain dance, this was weaponized meteorology.
But that just raises an even bigger question. I mean, how could an ancient civilization possibly engineer a localized flood on command? The answer, once again, isn't in mythology. It's in modern technology that we actually use all the time.
The modern blueprint for what the Varunastra did is a process we use today called weather modification, or more specifically, cloud seeding.
The process is actually pretty straightforward. So step 1, you disperse a payload of chemicals, something like silver iodide, into a cloud. Step 2, these tiny particles act as a nucleus, giving all the water vapor something to latch onto. Step 3, moisture just rapidly collects, the droplets get bigger and bigger until they're too heavy for the cloud to hold. And the result, step 4, a targeted, heavy downpour right where you want it. Now just imagine that technology, but instead of being launched from a slow-moving plane, it's deployed by those advanced flying machines described in the texts, the Vimanas. You could disperse these chemical payloads with incredible speed and precision, triggering a flash flood almost instantly to neutralize a thermal weapon like the Agneyastra.
So when you start putting all these pieces together, it really forces you to ask a fundamental question. Are these ancient texts just really, really good stories, or are they in fact technical manuals for technologies we thought we invented?
I mean, the parallels are just too exact to ignore. The Agneyastra's non-radioactive orbital firestorm is a textbook description of kinetic bombardment. Its direct counter, the Varuna-Astra's targeted downpour, is clearly advanced weather modification. It's a one-for-one match.
And this isn't just me doing some loose interpretation. The conclusion is stark. And I'm quoting here, "They are exact descriptions of military technologies that modern science is only just beginning to replicate."
Which leaves us with a pretty profound and, let's be honest, a slightly unsettling thought. If the blueprints for orbital weapons and weather control were just hiding in plain sight inside a 3,000-year-old story, what other so-called myths are actually just technical manuals that we don't yet have the scientific literacy to read?